Serafina Sterling was considered untouchable. Her father's billions buried secrets and silenced witnesses for 24 years. Yet no one accounted for Maya Linwood. Maya wasn't a rival heiress or jealous ex-girlfriend. She was a nobody, a waitress earning minimum wage who was simply supposed to be invisible. But on July 14th, inside Manhattan's exclusive penthouse, this invisible girl didn't just shatter a champagne glass, she shattered the entire Sterling dynasty. This isn't a fairy tale. It is the twisted true story of how the girl serving drinks ended up owning the empire. You think you know the rich? You have no idea. If you live in New York City, you know that there are two versions of the city. There is the concrete jungle, where people push through subway turnstiles and eat dollar slices. And then there is the stratosphere. The stratosphere isn't just a place. It's a frequency. It exists in penthouses overlooking Central Park, in members-only clubs where the entry fee is a referral from a senator, and in the back of tinted Escalades idling on Fifth Avenue. Maya Linwood lived in the first version, in a fourth-floor walk-up in Queens, with a radiator that hissed like a dying cat. But she worked in the stratosphere. Maya was 23, with the sharp, intelligent eyes that she learned to keep lowered. She worked at L'Oubli, a supper club so exclusive it didn't have a sign, just a heavy iron door on a cobblestone street in Tribeca. At L'Oubli, the staff wasn't just trained to serve, they were trained to disappear. The golden rule was simple: see everything, say nothing, and never, ever make eye contact, unless spoken to. On a humid Tuesday night in late June, the atmosphere inside L'Oubli was electric. The air smelled of expensive oud wood cologne and truffle oil. The reason for the tension was seated at table 1, the booth with the best lighting and the most privacy. Serafina Sterling had arrived. Serafina was the daughter of Richard Sterling, the private equity titan who effectively owned half of Midtown. Serafina was beautiful in a way that felt aggressive. She had platinum blonde hair that looked like spun silk and a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. She was surrounded by her usual court: Caleb Montgomery, the son of a media mogul, known for his lazy charm and dangerous driving record, and exquisite, vapid hangers-on who laughed too loud at jokes that weren't funny. Maya was assigned to table 1. It was the shift from hell, but the tips usually covered her rent for a month. Usually. More vodka, Grey Goose. And tell the bartender if he bruises the mint in my mojito again, I'll have him deported, Serafina said, not looking up from her phone. Her voice was a bored drawl, the sound of someone who had never heard the word no. Of course, Miss Sterling, Maya said, her voice a practiced monotone. Maya moved with the efficiency of a ghost. She replaced napkins, refilled water glasses, and navigated the crowded floor with a heavy tray balanced on one hand. She was invisible, until she wasn't. It happened at 11:45 p.m. Maya was placing a fresh round of cocktails on the table. As she leaned in to set down a martini, Caleb Montgomery, drunk and gesturing wildly while recounting a story about crashing his Porsche in Monaco, threw his arm back. His elbow connected hard with Maya's ribs. The tray destabilized. Time seemed to slow down. Maya tried to correct the balance, her wrist straining, but gravity won. The martini glass tipped. An olive and 3 ounces of premium vodka splashed directly onto Serafina Sterling's lap. The liquid soaked into the white silk of her archival Versace dress instantly, turning the fabric translucent. The music in the club didn't stop, but the silence at table 1 was deafening. Caleb froze. The hangers-on gasped. Serafina slowly looked down at her lap, then up at Maya. Her eyes were voids of icy blue. "I am so sorry," Maya said, grabbing a linen napkin. "Sir, you bumped my arm. Don't," Serafina whispered. The single word was like a whip crack. She stood up, the wet silk clinging to her legs. She didn't look at Caleb, the one who caused the accident. She looked only at the waitress. "You clumsy, stupid little cow," Serafina said, her voice loud enough to carry over the ambient house music. Heads at nearby tables turned. "Do you have any idea what this is? This dress costs more than your entire life." "It was an accident," Maya said, her jaw tightening. She knew the rule. Apologize, even when you're right. But something about Serafina's tone, the sheer dehumanization of it, sparked a flame in Maya's chest. "And he hit me." "I don't care who hit you," Serafina hissed, stepping closer, invading Maya's personal space. She smelled of Chanel No. 5 and malice. "You are here to serve us. That is your only function. If you can't do it without ruining 5-figure garments, you shouldn't be here." Serafina picked up a glass of red wine, a Pinot Noir from the bottle they had ordered, which cost $3,000. "Let's see how you like it," Serafina said. With a flick of her wrist, she threw the wine into Maya's face. The dark red liquid burned Maya's eyes and dripped off her chin, staining her white uniform shirt blood red. The club went silent. Even the DJ lowered the volume. Everyone was watching. The billionaire's daughter had just baptized the help. Maya stood there, blinded, dripping, humiliated. The shame was hot and suffocating. She wiped the wine from her eyes. She looked at Serafina, who was smirking, waiting for the tears, waiting for the beg. But Maya didn't cry. She didn't beg. She broke the rule. Maya took a step forward, ignoring the manager rushing towards them. She looked Serafina Sterling dead in the eye, a direct violation of protocol, and spoke clearly. "Your father paid off the DA in 2019 to cover up Caleb's hit and run," Maya said. Her voice wasn't loud, but it was steady. "And you were in the passenger seat." The smirk vanished from Serafina's face. Caleb turned pale, his glass halfway to his mouth. The air left the table. "Get out," Serafina whispered, her voice trembling, not with anger, but with sudden, sharp fear. "You're fired!" The manager, a frantic man named Gilles, screamed, grabbing Maya's arm. "Get out, now!" Maya shook him off. She took her apron off, balled it up, and dropped it into the puddle of wine on the floor. She held Serafina's gaze for 1 second longer, long enough to let the heiress know that the invisible girl had been watching, listening, and remembering everything. Maya turned and walked out the iron door into the humid New York night. She was trembling, adrenaline coursing through her veins. She had just lost her job. She had likely blacklisted herself from every high-end venue in the city. But as she walked toward the subway, Maya Linwood didn't feel fear. She felt the grim satisfaction of a soldier who had just fired the first shot in a war, because Serafina didn't know the truth. She didn't know that Maya wasn't just a waitress. Maya had taken that job at L'Oubli for a reason. She'd been hunting Serafina Sterling for 2 years, and tonight the game had finally begun. The next morning, Maya's phone was a brick of silence. She sat on her fire escape, drinking cheap instant coffee, replaying the night in her head. She knew retaliation would come. Men like Richard Sterling didn't leave loose ends, and girls like Serafina didn't forgive public defiance. She expected a lawsuit. She expected a cease and desist. She didn't expect the black town car. It pulled up to a building in Queens at 11 a.m., looking ridiculously out of place amongst the dented Hondas and graffiti-tagged vans. A man in a charcoal suit stepped out. He didn't look like a lawyer. He looked like a cleaner. He buzzed her apartment. "Miss Linwood?" Miss Sterling would like a word. Maya's instinct screamed run, but she had come too far to run. She grabbed her bag, checked the pepper spray in her pocket, and went downstairs. The car ride was silent. They didn't go to Richard Sterling's office in Midtown. They drove out to the Hamptons. The journey took 2 hours, transitioning from the grime of the city to the manicured, emerald green hedges of the ultra-wealthy. They pulled into the driveway of the Sterling estate on Meadow Lane. It was a monstrosity of glass and steel, perched on the edge of the Atlantic Ocean, looking more like a villain's lair than a home. Maya was led onto the back terrace. Serafina was there, lounging on a white chaise, wearing oversized sunglasses and a caftan that fluttered in the sea breeze. Caleb was nowhere to be seen. Serafina didn't offer her a seat. "You know," Serafina said, taking a sip of iced tea, "my father's lawyers drafted a lawsuit this morning. Defamation, breach of contract, emotional distress. We could bury you in litigation until your grandchildren are paying off your debt." "It's not defamation if it's true," Maya said, standing tall, "and we both know it is." Serafina lowered her sunglasses. The bruise on her ego from last night was clearly still fresh, but there was something else in her eyes now. Curiosity. "How do you know?" Serafina asked. "About the accident?" "I serve drinks, Serafina. People don't look at the help. They think we're furniture. You and Caleb talked about it 3 weeks ago at the corner booth. You were laughing about how cheap the settlement was." Serafina studied her. "You're smart. Sharper than the idiots I usually hang out with." "Is that why I'm here? To be complimented?" "No. You're here because you're dangerous," Serafina said. She stood up and walked to the edge of the balcony, looking out at the crashing waves. "My father wants to destroy you. He wants to ensure you never work again." "But I had a better idea." Serafina turned back, a wicked smile playing on her lips. "I'm bored, Maya. I'm bored of my friends who are terrified of me. I'm bored of Caleb, who is an idiot, and I'm intrigued by you. You stood up to me. Nobody does that." Serafina picked up a leather folder from the table and tossed it toward Maya. It slid across the glass surface. "That is a non-disclosure agreement. It buys your silence regarding the accident and anything else you heard at Lubli. In exchange, I don't sue you." "I'm not signing that," Maya said. "There's a second clause," Serafina interrupted. "Read it." Maya opened the folder. Her eyes scanned the legal jargon until she hit the employment section. Position, personal assistant, companion to Serafina Sterling. Salary, $150,000 per annum, plus room and board. Maya looked up, stunned. "You want to hire me?" "I want to keep my enemies close," Serafina corrected. "If you work for me, you sign the NDA. If you break the NDA, you go to jail. But if you work for me, you live here. You travel with me. You get a taste of the life you clearly resent, but secretly want." "Why would you do this?" Maya asked, genuinely baffled. "I threw your hypocrisy in your face." "Exactly," Serafina whispered, stepping close again, recreating the intimacy of the nightclub confrontation. "I need someone real, and I think it would be fun to break you. To see how long your little moral high ground lasts when you're dripping in diamonds and drinking vintage champagne. Everyone has a price, Maya. I want to find yours." It was a trap. Maya knew it was a trap. Serafina wanted to turn her into a pet, to humiliate her slowly, day by day, proving that the waitress could be bought just like everyone else. But Serafina didn't know the full story. She didn't know that Maya's mother had been Richard Sterling's secretary 25 years ago. She didn't know that Maya had a birth certificate in a safety deposit box that listed Richard Sterling as her father. Maya wasn't just entering the lion's den to serve the queen. She was entering to burn the kingdom down. This was the access she had prayed for. Maya pulled a pen from her bag. She looked at the contract, then at Serafina. "I have one condition," Maya said. "You're in no position to bargain. I want my student loans paid off, today, in full, separate from the salary." Serafina laughed, a bright, tinkling sound. "Done. That's barely pocket change." Maya signed the paper. The ink felt heavy, like blood. "Welcome to the family, Maya," Serafina smiled. It was the smile of a shark, sensing blood in the water. "Thank you, Miss Sterling," Maya said, slipping back into her role. As Maya was escorted to the guest wing, a suite larger than her entire apartment building, she texted a single number on her burner phone. The contact was saved as unknown. The text read, "I'm in. It's starting." Maya looked around her new room. Silk curtains, marble floors, a view of the ocean. She walked to the mirror and looked at herself. The wine stain was gone, but the war paint was on. She had sold her soul to the devil, but Serafina forgot one thing. The devil was a fallen angel, but Maya was the judgment that was coming for them all. But things were about to get complicated. Because that evening, a third player entered the game. And he wasn't Caleb, and he wasn't Richard. He was the one person Maya hadn't accounted for. The third player wasn't a family member. He didn't carry the Sterling name, but he carried their secrets. His name was Gabriel Stone. Maya met him 3 hours after moving into the estate. She was in the library, ostensibly looking for a book to read, but actually scanning the spines for a safe or a hidden latch, the kind of clichés rich men use to hide their ledgers. The history of the Roman Empire, a bit heavy for light reading. The voice was low, gravelly, and came from the shadows near the heavy oak door. Maya didn't jump. She had trained herself not to flinch. She turned slowly. Gabriel Stone was leaning against the doorframe. He was in his early 30s, wearing a suit that cost more than a car, but fit him like tactical gear. He had dark hair, a scar running through his left eyebrow, and eyes that were unsettlingly observant. He wasn't handsome in the way Caleb was. Caleb was a boy. Gabriel was a man who looked like he had done terrible things and slept soundly afterwards. "I like history," Maya said, sliding the book back onto the shelf. "It teaches you how empires fall." Gabriel walked into the room. He moved with a predatory grace, silent on the Persian rug. "I'm Gabriel Stone, head of security for Richard Sterling. I manage the family's liabilities." "I know who you are," Maya said. She did. Gabriel Stone was the cleaner. When Serafina got a DUI, Gabriel made the police report vanish. When Richard's business partners got greedy, Gabriel paid them a visit. He was the gatekeeper Maya needed to get past. "And I know who you are, Maya," Gabriel said, stopping 3 feet from her. The proximity was intimidating. "You're the waitress who embarrassed Serafina. Now you're the pet project. Serafina thinks you're a toy. She thinks she's playing with you. And what do you think?" "I think you're a grifter," Gabriel said, his voice void of emotion. "I ran a background check on you the second Serafina called me. Maya Linwood, born in Queens. Mother passed away 5 years ago. No father listed. Community college dropout. Debt. You're desperate, and desperate people are dangerous." He took a step closer. Maya could smell tobacco and rain on his jacket. "Here is how this works," he continued. "You are here on a probationary basis. You break a vase? I don't care. You steal a spoon? I don't care. But if you go near Richard Sterling's office, or his computer, or his files, I won't fire you. I will dismantle you. Do we understand each other?" Maya looked up at him. Her heart was hammering against her ribs, but she forced a smile. "I'm just here to hold Serafina's purse, Mr. Stone. You're imagining threats where there aren't any." Gabriel studied her for a long, uncomfortable moment. "We'll see." For the next 2 weeks, life at the Sterling estate was a psychological war zone. Serafina was relentless. She didn't treat Maya like a slave. She treated her like a doll. "Wear this," Serafina would say, throwing a dress that was 2 sizes too small at Maya. "We're going to brunch." At brunch, Serafina would introduce Maya to her socialite friends as "my little rescue project." They would ask condescending questions about what it was like to take the subway or shop at Walmart. Maya answered every question with polite, vapid sweetness, all while memorizing names, connections, and scandals. But the real work happened at night. Maya discovered that the house was wired with smart cameras, but there were blind spots. The servants' corridors, the back patio. One Tuesday night, Richard Sterling arrived home. A helicopter landed on the back lawn, the rotors whipping the sea spray into a frenzy. Maya watched from her window as her father, the man who had abandoned her mother, pregnant and alone, stepped out. He looked older than his photos, grayer. He was on the phone, looking furious. Maya needed to get close to him. She needed his biometrics, a fingerprint, a voice recording, something to access the encrypted server where he kept the evidence of his illegal offshore dealings. The dealings that, according to her mother's old journals, were the source of his initial fortune. The opportunity came 2 days later. Serafina hosted a casual cocktail hour for Richard's business associates. Maya was on duty pouring drinks, a task Serafina insisted on, to remind her of her roots. Maya was circulating with a tray of champagne when she saw Richard standing alone by the fireplace. This was it. She walked over. "Champagne, Mr. Sterling?" Richard turned. He had cold grey eyes. He looked at her, distracted. He reached for the glass. As he took it, Maya deliberately let her fingers brush against his. She wasn't flirting. She was checking for a ring, a watch, anything she could use. But as their eyes met, Richard paused. He frowned. He looked at Maya's face, really looked at her, and the colour drained from his cheeks. "Do I know you?" he asked, his voice rough. Maya's heart stopped. She looked exactly like her mother did at 23. "I'm Maya, sir, Serafina's new assistant." Richard stared at her, a mixture of confusion and sudden, dawning horror. He opened his mouth to say something, but suddenly, a heavy hand landed on Maya's shoulder. "Mr. Sterling," Gabriel Stone said, appearing out of nowhere. "There's a call on the secure line. It's the senator." Richard blinked, snapping out of the trance. He looked at Gabriel, then back at Maya, his eyes narrowing with suspicion. "Right. Excuse me." He walked away, but he looked back at her twice. Gabriel tightened his grip on Maya's shoulder. It wasn't painful, but it was a warning. "You're swimming in deep water, Maya," Gabriel whispered in her ear. "Richard doesn't like new faces, especially ones that look like ghosts." Maya pulled away. "I was just serving a drink." "You were shaking," Gabriel noted. "Why were you shaking?" "Because you were staring at me," she lied. "Keep it up," Gabriel said, his voice dropping to a dangerous purr. "I'm watching you, and unlike Richard, I don't believe in ghosts." Maya retreated to the kitchen, her hands trembling. Richard had recognized her, or at least he recognized the ghost of the woman he destroyed. The clock was ticking faster now. She had to act before they figured out exactly who she was. She checked her phone. A message from unknown. "The gala is Saturday. The red ledger is in the safe in the master suite. The code changes every 24 hours. You need to get Stone out of the room." Maya looked across the room at Gabriel, who was watching the perimeter like a hawk. Getting him out of the way was impossible, unless she made him the distraction. The Sterling Foundation Gala was the event of the season. It was held at the Pierre Hotel in Manhattan, a ballroom dripping with crystal chandeliers and billions of dollars in net worth. Serafina had been preparing for days. For Maya, the preparation was different. Serafina had handed her a dress that morning. "Wear this," Serafina had said with a smirk. "It's vintage." It was a hideous, puffy taffeta gown from the 80s, bright neon pink. It was designed to make Maya look ridiculous, to make her stand out like a sore thumb amidst the sleek black-tie elegance of the guests. Maya put it on. She knew the game. If she refused, she was ungrateful. If she wore it, she was the court jester. But Maya had a pair of scissors. 10 minutes before they were set to leave, Maya altered the dress. She cut the puffy sleeves off, ripped the tulle skirt to create a high slit, and pinned the bodice to fit her like a glove. When she walked out to the limousine, she didn't look ridiculous. She looked avant-garde. She looked striking. Serafina's jaw dropped when she saw her. "What did you do?" "I made it work," Maya said simply. Serafina narrowed her eyes. "You think you're clever. Just wait." The gala was a sea of flashbulbs. Maya walked 3 steps behind Serafina, holding her clutch. Inside the ballroom, the elite of New York were drinking and gossiping. Gabriel Stone was there, of course. He was wearing a tuxedo, speaking into an earpiece, his eyes scanning the room. He spotted Maya in her altered pink dress, and for a split second, a look of impressed amusement flickered across his face before returning to stone-cold professionalism. The plan was simple, according to the text from Unknown. During the keynote speech, Richard would be on stage. Gabriel would be guarding the stage. The master suite at the Pierre, where the Sterlings were staying for the night, would be guarded by a junior security officer. Maya needed to slip away, get to the suite, find the safe, and photograph the ledger. But Serafina made her move first. At 9 p.m., just as appetizers were being cleared, Serafina grabbed Maya's arm. She looked frantic. My bracelet, the diamond tennis bracelet, the Cartier one. It's gone. I haven't seen it, Maya said. I gave it to you. Serafina raised her voice. I handed it to you in the limo because the clasp was loose. People started to turn. You didn't give me anything, Serafina, Maya said calmly. You thief, Serafina shrieked. It was a performance worthy of an Oscar. Daddy, she stole my bracelet. Richard Sterling turned from his conversation with the mayor. The music stopped. Security moved in. Gabriel was at Maya's side in an instant. Check her bag, Serafina demanded, pointing at the small purse Maya was carrying. Maya felt a cold pit in her stomach. She knew the bracelet was in there. Serafina must have slipped it in when Maya was distracted in the cloakroom. If they found it, it was over. Prison, the end of the plan. Give me the bag, Gabriel said. Maya looked at Gabriel. She saw the calculation in his eyes. He expected to find it. I didn't take it, Maya said to him, her voice barely a whisper. You know I'm not stupid enough to steal jewelry. The bag, Gabriel repeated. Maya handed it over. Her hands were shaking. Gabriel unzipped the clutch. He reached inside. Serafina was smirking, waiting for the flash of diamonds. Gabriel's hand rummaged around. He paused. He looked at Serafina, then back at the bag. He pulled his hand out. It was empty. There's nothing here but a lipstick and a phone, Gabriel said loudly. The room went silent. Serafina's face went white. What? That's impossible. Check again. I checked, Gabriel said, his voice finalizing the matter. It's not there. Maybe it fell in the limo, Richard Sterling said, looking annoyed at his daughter for causing a scene. Serafina, stop making a spectacle. Sit down. Serafina stood there, humiliated, her mouth opening and closing like a fish. She glared at Gabriel, then at Maya. Maya was stunned. She knew the bracelet had been in there. She had felt the weight of it earlier. Gabriel had found it, and he had palmed it. He had saved her. Why? The commotion died down as the lights dimmed for the speeches. Gabriel moved close to Maya, leaning in so his breath brushed her ear. I have the bracelet in my pocket, he whispered. You owe me. Big time. Why? She whispered back. Because I want to know what you're really doing, he said. A thief steals for money. You're not here for money. You're hunting, and I want to know what the prey is. He pulled back. Now, Richard is going on stage. You have 20 minutes before the speeches end. If you're going to do whatever you're planning to do upstairs, do it now. I've pulled the guard from the suite. Maya stared at him, shocked. He was letting her in. Go, he hissed. Maya didn't waste a second. She slipped through the crowd towards the service elevators. She ascended to the penthouse suite. She entered the room. It was dark. She found the safe behind a painting, just as Unknown had described. She needed the code. She tried her mother's birthday. 0714, error. She tried Serafina's birthday. Error. She paused. What was the one thing Richard Sterling cared about? The one thing he obsessively protected? The date of his first million? Maya didn't know the date. Panic set in. She had 3 minutes left before the lock would auto-freeze. Then she remembered something from the text messages she had intercepted on her first day, a recurring calendar reminder Richard had. January 20th, the date his company went public. She typed 0120. Click. The heavy steel door swung open. Inside, there were stacks of cash, passports, and a small red leather book. Maya grabbed the book. She opened it. It wasn't just numbers. It was a list of names. Judges, senators, police captains, and next to each name, a payment amount and a favor granted. This was it. The Black Book. The proof that Richard Sterling ran New York like a mob boss. She pulled out her phone and started snapping photos of the pages. Page after page, her hands were flying. She heard the elevator ding down the hall. Someone was coming. She snapped the last page, a page dated 24 years ago. The entry read, "Payment to Cynthia Linwood, $500,000. Condition, silence regarding the child. Termination of employment." Maya stared at her mother's name. The tears welled up instantly. He had paid her off. He had bought her silence. The footsteps were at the door. Maya shoved the book back into the safe, slammed it shut, and spun the dial. She dove behind the heavy velvet curtains just as the door opened. It was Richard Sterling, and he wasn't alone. "I saw her leave the ballroom," Richard's voice growled. "Find her. Now!" "I'm looking, sir," came Caleb's voice. "She knows something," Richard said, pacing the room, stopping inches from where Maya was hiding. "When I looked at her, I saw Cynthia. If she is Cynthia's brat, she's a loose end. And you know what we do with loose ends." Maya held her breath, pressing her hand over her mouth. She was trapped. "If she's the daughter," Caleb said, his voice trembling, "does she have a claim to the estate?" "Not if she's dead," Richard said coldly. "Call Stone. Tell him to bring the car around back. We're taking her for a ride tonight. One way." Maya's blood ran cold. This wasn't a game anymore. They were going to kill her. She was clutching her phone to her chest. She had the evidence. But she was trapped in a room with two men who wanted her dead, and the only man who knew where she was, Gabriel, was the man who cleaned up their messes. Had Gabriel sent her up here to get the evidence, or had he sent her up here to be caught? Maya held her breath until her lungs burned. Behind the heavy velvet curtain, she could see Richard Sterling's polished shoes pacing back and forth on the Persian rug. "Stone is taking too long," Caleb muttered, his voice shaking. "What if she went to the police?" "She has nothing," Richard snapped. "No proof. Just the word of a disgruntled waitress against a man who built this city. But I want her gone. Tonight." The door to the suite opened. Heavy, deliberate footsteps entered. "Mr. Sterling?" Gabriel Stone's voice filled the room. It was calm, professional, and terrifying. "Did you find her?" Richard demanded. "I secured the perimeter," Gabriel said, "and I found this." Maya heard a soft thud. She peeked through the slit in the curtains. Gabriel had thrown her clutch bag onto the table, the one he had confiscated downstairs. "She's still in the building," Gabriel said. He walked slowly towards the window, towards the curtains where Maya was hiding. Maya's heart hammered against her ribs like a trapped bird. He knew he had sent her up here. He knew exactly where she was. Gabriel stopped right in front of the curtain. He reached out. "This is it," Maya thought. "He's going to hand me over." Gabriel ripped the curtain back. "Found her," Gabriel said, his face expressionless. Maya gasped, stumbling back against the glass window. Richard Sterling turned, a cruel smile spreading across his face. "Well, well," Richard said, walking over. "The little ghost." "I have the photos," Maya blurted out, holding up her phone. "I have the ledger. If you touch me, it goes to the press." Richard laughed. It was a dry, hollow sound. "You have no signal up here, darling, and you're not leaving this room with that phone." He nodded to Gabriel. "Stone, take her. You know the protocol. Make it look like a drug overdose, a tragic end for a troubled girl." Gabriel looked at Maya. His eyes were unreadable. "Understood, sir." He grabbed Maya's arm. His grip was iron. Maya struggled, kicking and screaming. "Let me go! You're a monster! Everyone will know!" "Quiet," Gabriel growled, twisting her arm behind her back painfully. He dragged her towards the door. Caleb stepped forward, looking like he wanted to help, or maybe just watch. "I'll drive," Caleb volunteered eagerly. "No," Gabriel said, his voice dropping an octave. "You stay here. You're a liability, Caleb. You panic. I do this alone." Gabriel shoved Maya out into the hallway, past the confused junior security guard who had returned to his post. He marched her to the service elevator and pressed the button for the garage. As the doors closed, isolating them, Maya spun on him. "You traitor! You set me up! You told me to come up here!" Gabriel didn't look at her. He stared straight ahead at the floor numbers counting down. "Shut up, Maya. Check your pocket." Maya paused. She reached into a blazer pocket. She felt a cold, hard object. It was Serafina's diamond bracelet. "I put it back when I grabbed you," Gabriel said. "If we get stopped by cops, you're a thief. If we don't, it's your severance pay." "Where are you taking me?" "To the river," Gabriel said flatly. The elevator opened into the VIP garage. A black SUV was waiting. Gabriel threw her into the passenger seat and locked the door. He got in the driver's side and peeled out of the garage, tires screeching. They hit the city streets. Maya watched the GPS. He was heading towards the West Side Highway, towards the docks, the disposal site. "Please," Maya whispered, her voice trembling. "You don't have to do this. I know you saw the ledger. You saw what he did." Gabriel didn't answer. He drove with surgical precision, weaving through traffic. Richard called Gabriel's phone. Gabriel answered on speaker. "Is it done?" Richard's voice asked. "En route, sir. ETA 10 minutes. "Good. Burn the phone afterwards." Gabriel hung up. He rolled down his window, and then he threw his own phone out onto the highway at 60 miles per hour. Maya stared at him. Gabriel swerved the car. He didn't take the exit for the docks. He cut across 3 lanes of traffic, horns blaring behind them, and shot towards the Lincoln Tunnel, toward New Jersey. "You missed the turn," Maya whispered. "I know," Gabriel said. He reached under the dashboard and ripped out a GPS tracker, tossing it out the window too. "What are you doing?" Gabriel finally looked at her. The mask of the cold-hearted security chief dropped. He looked exhausted. "I'm kidnapping you," he said, "because if I leave you in New York tonight, you'll be dead by morning. And I've spent 3 years working undercover to get that ledger. I'm not letting you get killed before we can use it." Maya was stunned. "Undercover? You're police?" "FBI," Gabriel said. "Operation Glass Castle. We've been trying to nail Richard Sterling for racketeering and murder for a decade, but we couldn't get the safe code. We needed a family member, or someone with family blood." He looked at her with a grim smile. "I didn't help you because I like you, Maya. I helped you because you were the key. You have the photos?" "Yes." "Good. Then hang on, because Richard just realized his cleaner has gone rogue, and he's going to send the whole world after us." They drove for 2 hours, deep into the industrial wasteland of New Jersey. They stopped at a motel that looked like it rented rooms by the hour. The neon sign buzzed ominously. "No vacancy." But Gabriel kicked the door of room 104 open. He had clearly used this safe house before. "Don't touch the curtains," Gabriel ordered, tossing a burner phone onto the bed. "Connect your phone to this hotspot. Upload the photos to the secure server I'm about to give you. Do it now." Maya sat on the lumpy mattress, her hands shaking as she accessed the cloud. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because you're a terrible liar," Gabriel said, pacing the small room, checking his gun. "If you knew I was a Fed, Richard would have seen it on your face. I needed you terrified. Fear looks authentic. You almost broke my arm. I saved your life. You're welcome." The upload bar crawled across the screen. 20%. 40%. "Who was she?" Gabriel asked suddenly. "The entry you saw in the ledger. Who was Cynthia Linwood?" Maya didn't look up. "My mother. She was his secretary. They had an affair. When she got pregnant, he paid her $500,000 to disappear. He made her sign a contract saying she'd never tell me who my father was." Gabriel stopped pacing. "And the money?" "Medical bills," Maya said bitterly. "She got sick when I was 10. The money was gone by the time I was 12. She died broke. He was living in a palace, and she died in a hospice ward in Queens because we couldn't afford better care. The upload hit 90%. Suddenly the room's landline phone rang. It was a jarring, shrill sound in the silence. Gabriel froze. Nobody knew they were here. This was a dark sight. Gabriel motioned for Maya to stay back. He picked up the receiver and held it to his ear without speaking. "Hello, Gabriel," a female voice purred on the other end. It wasn't Richard. It was Serafina. Gabriel's eyes widened. He slammed the phone down. "We have to go, now." "What? Who was it?" "Serafina. They found us." "How? You threw the tracker out." "Your phone," Gabriel realized, cursing himself. "The photos, the metadata in the photos you just uploaded. They have a back door into the cloud server. Richard owns the hosting company. I didn't check the hosting company." Glass shattered. A tear gas canister smashed through the window, landing on the carpet, hissing white smoke. "Move!" Gabriel grabbed Maya, shielding her with his body as he kicked the back door of the room open. They spilled out into the alleyway behind the motel. The night air was filled with sirens, but not police sirens. These were private security vehicles. Black SUVs were swarming the parking lot. "There!" a voice shouted. Two men in tactical gear sprinted around the corner. Gabriel raised his weapon, a standard-issue Glock he had pulled from his ankle holster, and fired 2 warning shots. The men dove for cover. "The car is blocked!" Gabriel shouted over the noise. "We have to head for the train yard." They ran. Maya's heels broke, so she kicked them off, running barefoot over the gravel and broken glass. They scrambled over a chain-link fence, dropping into an abandoned rail yard. They hid behind a rusted tanker car, gasping for air. Maya checked her phone. "Upload complete. I sent it," she panted. "The FBI has it." "It doesn't matter if we're dead," Gabriel said, reloading. "Richard's men aren't here to arrest us." "Gabriel!" A voice echoed through the train yard, amplified by a megaphone. It was Serafina. She was standing on top of a shipping container, 50 yards away, silhouetted against the floodlights of the SUVs. She looked like a queen, surveying a battlefield. "Give me the girl, Gabriel," Serafina shouted. "You can walk away. I'll even wire $5 million to an offshore account. Just give me the waitress." Gabriel looked at Maya. He was sweating. He was outnumbered 10-1. "Why is she here?" Maya whispered. "Why send the daughter?" "Because Richard is scared," Gabriel realized. "He's not leading the hunt because he's shredding documents back at the office. He sent Serafina to clean up his mess." Gabriel looked at Maya. "Can you run?" "Yes." "There's a gap in the fence. North side. Go. I'll hold them off." "No," Maya said, grabbing his arm. "If I leave, they kill you. And if you die, nobody can verify the evidence. We go together." Maya stood up. Before Gabriel could stop her, she stepped out from behind the tanker car, into the spotlight. "Serafina!" Maya screamed. "Maya, get down!" Gabriel hissed. "You want me?" Maya yelled, holding her phone up high. "Come and get me, but you should know, the live stream is already running." Serafina froze. "I'm live on YouTube right now," Maya lied, her voice cracking but loud. 80,000 people are watching. Wave to the camera, sister." It was a bluff, a desperate, insane bluff. Maya's YouTube channel had 0 subscribers. She hadn't even opened the app. But Serafina hesitated. She lived her life online. The threat of a live audience was more terrifying to her than a gun. She signaled her men to hold fire. "You're lying," Serafina called out, but her voice wavered. "Am I?" Maya shouted back. "Check your feed. Billionaire'S hunts sister in New Jersey. It's trending." For a split second, Serafina looked down at her phone to check. That was the second Gabriel needed. "Go!" They broke cover, sprinting toward the gap in the fence. Gunshots rang out behind them, pinging off the metal trains, but Serafina's hesitation had bought them the distance. They scrambled through the hole in the fence and tumbled down an embankment onto a main road. A trucker was idling at a red light. Gabriel flashed his badge against the window. "Federal agent, open the door!" The terrified driver unlocked the cab. They climbed in. "Drive!" Gabriel ordered. As the semi-truck rumbled away, leaving the private army behind in the dust, Maya slumped against the dashboard. She looked at her phone. It was black. Dead battery. You didn't stream it, Gabriel said, breathing heavily. No, Maya smiled weakly. But she believed I did. Rich people always believe everyone is watching them. We're not safe yet, Gabriel said, looking at the side mirror. Richard knows the FBI has the files now. He's cornered. And a cornered animal is the most dangerous thing on earth. We have to get to the Federal Plaza before he calls in favors to have us intercepted. Maya looked out the window at the passing lights. She wasn't a waitress anymore. She wasn't just a daughter. She was the woman who had just bluffed a dynasty and won. Let's finish this, Maya said. The semi-truck air brakes hissed as it pulled up to the corner of Broadway and Worth Street in Lower Manhattan. It was 4 a.m. The city was asleep, but the lights of Federal Plaza burned bright. Maya and Gabriel climbed down from the cab. They looked like they had been through a war zone. Maya's dress was torn, her feet were bleeding, and Gabriel's tuxedo was covered in dust and grease. This is it, Gabriel said, checking his clip one last time. Once we cross that plaza, you're the star witness. There's no turning back. I never wanted to turn back, Maya said. She gripped the phone, the digital smoking gun, tightly in her hand. They walked toward the heavy glass doors of the FBI field office. But Richard Sterling had one last card to play. As they reached the steps, 3 black sedans screeched to a halt at the curb. 6 men in suits got out. They weren't private security this time. They were lawyers. Leading them was Arthur Pendleton, the most expensive defense attorney in New York, a man known as the Undertaker because he buried the truth. "Miss Linwood," Pendleton shouted, holding up a hand. "Stop right there." Gabriel stepped in front of Maya. "Step back, Pendleton. She's in federal custody." "She's a mentally unstable young woman who has stolen proprietary data," Pendleton said smoothly, flanked by 2 large men who looked more like thugs than paralegals. "We have an emergency injunction signed by Judge Kincaid 10 minutes ago. She is to be remanded to a psychiatric facility for evaluation immediately." He waved a piece of paper. It was a court order. Richard had woken up a crooked judge in the middle of the night. "It's over, Maya," Pendleton said, his voice dripping with false sympathy. "Your father just wants to get you help. Get in the car." Maya looked at the paper. Then she looked at the FBI building. It was 50 feet away. "He's not my father," Maya said. "He's my target." "Grab her," Pendleton ordered the guards. The guards lunged. Gabriel tackled the first one, sending them both crashing onto the concrete steps. The second guard reached for Maya. "Federal agents, get on the ground!" The doors of the federal building burst open. A dozen tactical agents poured out, rifles raised, led by Assistant Director Sarah Jenkins. "Pendleton, back off, or I will arrest you for obstruction of justice," Jenkins screamed. Pendleton froze. The guards backed away. The sight of federal rifles was enough to break their paycheck loyalty. Gabriel stood up, wiping blood from his lip. He looked at Maya and nodded. "Go." Maya walked past the lawyers, past the injunction, and into the safety of the lobby. 6 months later. The trial of the century took place at the Southern District of New York. The media called it the Cinderella trial. The courtroom was packed. Every major news network was there. Richard Sterling sat at the defense table looking diminished. Without his expensive suits and his spray tan, he looked like what he was, a scared old man. Maya took the stand. She wore a simple white blouse. She didn't look invisible anymore. District Attorney Robert Holloway, the prosecutor, walked her through the ledger, name by name, bribe by bribe. And finally, "Miss Linwood," Holloway said, "let's talk about the entry dated July 14th, 24 years ago. The payment to your mother." "He paid her to leave," Maya said, her voice steady. "But that wasn't the worst part." Maya turned to look at Richard. "We found the rest of the files, Richard," she said directly to him. "The toxicology reports from my mother's autopsy. You didn't just pay her. You had her prescriptions switched. The sickness that killed her? It was slow poisoning, arsenic, administered by the doctor on your payroll. The courtroom erupted. This was the twist nobody saw coming. The ledger didn't just prove corruption, it proved murder. Richard slammed his fist on the table. Lies! She's lying! The doctor testified this morning in a closed session, Holloway revealed calmly. He gave you up, Richard, to save himself. Richard Sterling slumped back in his chair. It was over, but the final nail in the coffin didn't come from the jury. It came from the gallery. Serafina stood up. She was sitting in the back row, wearing black, looking like a widow. "Is it true?" she whispered, her voice carrying through the silent room. "Did you kill her?" "Sit down, Serafina," Richard snapped. "You told me she was a gold digger," Serafina said, tears streaming down her face. "You told me my mother died of a heart attack. Did you kill her, too? Was she too expensive to keep?" "Order." The judge banged the gavel. But the damage was done. The Sterling family wasn't just broken. It was incinerated. The aftermath. Richard Sterling was sentenced to 3 consecutive life terms without parole. He would die in a cell, wearing the same cheap orange jumpsuit as the criminals he used to look down on. The Sterling assets were seized by the government. The penthouses, the yachts, the diamonds, all sold off to pay restitution to the victims. Serafina was stripped of her fortune. The last time Maya saw her, she was working as a hostess in a bistro in Brooklyn. They didn't speak, but Serafina gave her a nod, a silent acknowledgement of a truce. And Maya? She didn't take a dime of the settlement money. She donated her share to a legal defense fund for low-income service workers. On a crisp autumn afternoon, Maya sat on a bench in Central Park. She was reading a book. "History of the Roman Empire?" a voice asked. Maya smiled and looked up. Gabriel Stone was standing there. He wasn't wearing a tuxedo or a tactical vest. He was wearing jeans and a leather jacket. He had resigned from the FBI after the trial. "I told you," Maya said. "I like reading about how empires fall." "You didn't just read about it," Gabriel said, sitting next to her. "You made it happen." "What are you doing here, Gabriel?" "I'm looking for a partner," he said. "Private security, high-end consulting. We help people who can't help themselves. I need someone who can walk into a room, be invisible, and see everything." Maya closed her book. She looked at the skyline of New York City. It didn't look like an impossible fortress anymore. It looked like a playground. "I'm expensive," she teased. Gabriel smiled. "I know. But you're worth it." Maya Linwood, the waitress who broke every rule, took his hand. "When do we start?" And that is the true story of how Maya Linwood took down the Sterling Empire. It proves that no matter how much money you have, or how high your penthouse is, the truth always has a way of climbing the stairs. Richard Sterling died in prison 2 years ago, but the laws created after his trial protect workers to this day. If you enjoyed this roller coaster of revenge, justice, and secrets, please smash that like button. It really helps the algorithm share this story with more people. And if you want more true crime drama and twisted storytelling, hit subscribe and ring the notification bell. I post new stories every week that prove truth is stranger than fiction. What would you have done if you found that ledger? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.